The 2021 Beirut clashes were a series of clashes that erupted in the Lebanese capital of Beirut on the 14th of October 2021 between the supporters of the Christian Lebanese Forces Party and Hezbollah militants supported by the Amal movement, resulting in the death of 7 people associated with Hezbollah and its allies and injury of 32 others, and the arrest of 9 by the Lebanese armed forces. The violence erupted during a protest organized by Hezbollah and its allies against Tariq Bata, the lead judge probing the 2020 explosion in the city's port. The location of the clashes was the Justice Palace, located along the former civil war frontline between Muslim, Shiite and Christian areas. The clashes were the worst in the country since the 2008 Lebanon conflict. Lebanon had been in a state of financial crisis since 2019. And the situation gradually worsened with the COVID-19 recession and the explosion in the port of Beirut. In August 2021, a fuel tanker explosion in Akkar district killed dozens of people. In the fall of 2021, the Lebanese energy market collapsed upon fuel shortages, and on the 9th of October 2021, the country plunged into a 24-hour national blackout as power plants ran out of fuel. The leaders of both the Amal and Hezbollah, Nabi Berri and Hassan Nasrallah, have called for an end to the investigation they deem as too much focused on politicians close to their movements. On the 14th of October 2021, during the protest called by the Shia parties of Amal movement and Hezbollah as well as the Christian Marada movement against the lead judge investigating the Beirut port explosion, armed Hezbollah members stormed the Palace of Justice. Masked snipers responded by opening fire at the militia in the streets of Beirut. This led to a gunfight with armed Hezbollah and Amal movement supporters with weapons including assault rifles and rocket-propelled grenades. Some of the victims were killed with a gunshot to the head. The aftermath of the clashes saw some 7 people killed, including a woman who was killed inside her home, and 32 people injured. The clash only escalated fears of an imminent collapse of Lebanon and a return to the days of the Lebanese civil war. 9 people were arrested by the Lebanese armed forces in the aftermath of the clashes, and President Michel Aoun vowed to bring the perpetrators to justice. Banks, schools, offices and shops closed in many places as funerals of those killed in the clashes were held. President Michel Aoun expressed in a televised address that those responsible for the violence would be held accountable. He stated that, "I have made contacts with the relevant parties today to address what happened and, most importantly, to make sure that it never happens again." He compared the clashes to the Lebanese civil war, stating, "It took us back to the days that we said we would never forget and never repeat." Cars with mounted guns and flags of the Shia Amal and Hezbollah were driving throughout the Bekaa Valley in an apparent show of strength for the two movements. Prime Minister Najib Mikati stated that Lebanon would hold a national day of mourning for those killed in the attacks. He later told reporters that the clashes would be a setback for his government, but would be overcome, stating that Lebanon is going through a difficult phase. Not an easy one. "We are like a patient in front of the emergency room." U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price urged the de-escalation of tensions between political parties. Similarly, United States Under-Secretary of State Victoria Nuland, who had just visited Beirut that day, called the scene unacceptable. The Kuwaiti Ministry of Foreign Affairs called on its citizens in Lebanon to exercise caution and to stay away from sites of gatherings and security disturbances in some areas and to stay in their residences. A spokesperson for the Secretary General of the United Nations Antonio Guterres stated that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls on all concerned in Lebanon to immediately halt acts of violence and refrain from provocative actions or inflammatory rhetoric. This Lebanon-related article is a stub. You can help Wikipedia by expanding it.